We'll share screen. Only 26 attendees there yet. This is not a good strength yet. It is also the wastage of time because we are waiting for the students here. Okay, in last lecture we have discussed about the, you can say the decomposition techniques like the recursive decomposition and followed by the data decomposition. So data decomposition we have seen at three levels: input data decomposition, output data decomposition, and intermediate data decomposition. So subtypes of the data decomposition technique also we have seen in last lecture. And after that we have seen the owner computes rule also. So sometime question may be there, what is owner compute rule? So in that case you should know that is the what is owner compute rule. And here you are considering the input data decomposition and output data decomposition. You see there. And owner compute rule states that the process assigned a particular data item that is responsible for all computations associated with that particular data item. You see there. Means task from that process will be responsible to complete the computation associated with that data item. Then it is also divided into two subtypes: input data decomposition, owner computes rule, and output data decomposition, owner compute rule. So input data decomposition, the owner compute rules implies, or you can say the says that all computations that use the input data, okay, are performed by the process which holding that data. You see that, or to which that data is assigned, that process is responsible for computations. Whereas the in case of the output data decomposition, the owner compute rule says that the output is computed by the you can say the target process, or the process which are going to utilize the output that is produced by the current process. You can see that. So these are the two different ways for defining the or stating the owner compute rule. You will see. So today we'll see after this owner compute rule. Sometime it may be asked, that is the state and explain the owner compute rule. You see. So in this case, you have to state it as a general statement, and then you can explain as a input data and output data decomposition. Okay, how this rule is applicable there. Okay. So already we have seen the two decomposition techniques, so recursive decomposition and data decomposition. So next type is the exploratory decomposition, because two decomposition techniques are remaining there, exploratory and speculative decomposition. If you see there, because data decomposition technique, this is actually the second decomposition technique it is having the three subtypes: so input data decomposition, output data decomposition, and intermediate data decomposition, if you see there, or the combinations of the input and output data decomposition. So that type of decomposition we have already seen in previous lecture. So today we'll move towards the our next this is actually the third type of decomposition technique. You can see there. First one we have seen recursive, second one data decomposition, and third one is the exploratory decomposition. So let me see your strength, whether students join or not. Only 36 attendees are there. It is not, you can say, the out of 136, only 36 students are there. Means what is about rest of 100 students? Okay, so for those students, their separate list we are preparing now. Those are not attending lectures there. Then discussion will be with in meeting. We'll discuss regarding those students. So this is your responsibility. If your friend is not present, means you are attending, means you are regular, no problem. But those are not attending, this is the major issue for the students. Okay, and one more important point is there. For submitting the Google, attendance through Google Sheet, we have set their limiter. You can see that form limiter. So after that date and timing, it will automatically close the form. After that means whatever deadline is given, after that that form will not be active or will not accept the responses. You can see there. So you can understand that. So please submit your responses on time. That is the within 24 hours after the uh, posting that particular Google form. If you see there, still only 37 attendees. Very bad situation. Okay, so I can move on next type of the decomposition technique, that is the exploratory decomposition technique. Okay, so let me see our recording is in progress or not. Okay, currently it is working. Okay, so we already seen the recursive and data decomposition techniques. So how exploratory decomposition is different than the recursive and you can say the data decomposition. So in many cases, if you see there, the problems that is a large problem is there, and if you see there, the solution to find out the that is the for a given problem. Okay, so in that case, if you see there, there are many you can say the substates. If you see there, you need to search your solution by going through the different state space. If you see there, okay. So for exploratory decomposition, in many cases the decomposition of the problem goes hand in hand with its execution. Yeah, these problems typically involve the exploration of a state space of solutions. Means a huge number of substates will be there. Okay, or in that particular state space of solutions. Then problems in this class include a variety of discrete optimization problems. Then you can say theorem proving problem or game playing problem. Well-known problem is the 15 puzzle problem. If you see there, we are going to see the example of the same problem, that is the game playing, that is 15 puzzle problem. If you see there, so how this works, you can see. simple. Initially I have added only the single state and four substates from that particular state, depending on the moves possible, if you see that. So in current example, a simple application of exploratory decomposition in the solution to a 15 puzzle problem is shown here. So here we show a sequence of three moves that transform a given initial state A to a desired resultant state or final state D, if you see that. So in this case, if you see that at seventh, you can show the position or space. Okay, there are if you see that three different moves are possible. That is, you can move 7 up, then you will get the you can say the resultant matrix shown as in substate B. Then it is possible after that B state you can move the that is the 12 uh, yes 12 up, and then you will get the resultant state that is represented in uh, that is the D, if you see that, and which is your desired or the uh, you can say the expected resultant matrix, if you see there for the 8 puzzle problem. So of course the problem of computing the solution in general is much more difficult than in this simple example, but whatever uh, you can say the sample, okay, example I have shown in this current slide, it is the uh, very easy, if you see there, but actual computation is very much difficult, if you see there. So exploration levels will be more, okay, and you can say the number of states in that state space will be more in that case. So we'll see that example in next slide, if you see. So in current example, if you see there, there are possibilities, that is seventh space is blank there. That's why you can move 7 up, or you can move 6 towards right, 8 towards left, or 3 uh, uh, downward. Likewise, these are the possible moves, but in order to get the desired result, you have to follow the particular sequence of movements there. You see there, you are moving 7 up, 11 left, then 12 up to get the desired result that is shown in uh, matrix D. So this is the well-known example again, exploratory decomposition, same. Okay, so for convenience point of view, we have done the decomposition of the, you can say the uh, you can say the task into four number of subtasks, task 1, 2, 3, 4. It depends on the movement of you can say the your tiles you are moving towards the left, right, up, down, likewise. You see that. So your you can say the initial or source state is shown there, that is 11th number, you can say the space is blank there, if you see that. So there is possibility of moving you can say the 15 up, that is the task 1, that is the, then moving the uh, you can say the 7 down, that is the task 2, moving the 11 you can say the, sorry, 10 right, that is the task 3, and moving 11 left, that is the task 4. So depending on that, four tasks are created there or generated in this exploratory decomposition, if you see that. So again you will have the different states available there in solution space of the states there for task 1, task 2, 3, and 4. For task 1, 3 number of sub states will be there. For task 2, again 4 number of substates will be there. Task 3, again 4 number of substates are there. And task 4, 3 number of substates are there, if you see there. Because in case of the task 1 and task 4, only movement possible left, right, and down, right? And in case of task 4 also, movements are possible up, down, and right movement only. That's why 3 substates are there. In case of the task 2 and task 3, 4 number of moves are possible, that is up, down, left, right, if you see. That's why substates are 4 there, if you see that. So if you see the task 1, you have possibility of moving the uh, you can say the 15 down, then or moving the 14 to its right and moving the you can say the 12 to its left, then also you will not get the final result. But in case of task 2 also you have that is the possibility of moving 7 up, then moving 3 down, then moving you can see the 6 towards its right, and moving the you can say the 8 towards its left. So these are the possibilities. Then also you will not get the final solution. In task 3 also you can move 14 down, then you can move the 6 yeah 14 down. This is possible, right? Not, yeah, then you can move the 6 down also, or you can move the uh, after 6 is down there, then there is possibility of moving 9 towards its right, then moving the you can say the 10 towards left. These are the possibilities if you see that. But in case of task 4, if you see as we progress from right to left, okay, so you have moved there 11 towards its right, then in next substate you have moved that is 8 down there, and in last step if you see there you have moved the 12 up, and which is the your expected desired state if you see there. So in this way exploration will be done, and you have to search the your solution state space sorry state in a given space of a state space if you see there. So task 4 followed by the substate, that will be your the resultant state there in current example. So you have to remember here in exploratory decomposition and its anomalous computation, because it is having many instances of exploratory decomposition. We have seen just state 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 and 4 having the 3 instances, and 2 and 3 having the 4 instances of the substates in a solution space. So this changes, sorry, so the decomposition technique may change the amount of work done by the parallel formulation of the you can say the task or subtask. This change results in super or sublinear speed up also of your system. So if you see there, uh, two examples are represented here. That is the 4 tasks are shown having the work associated with MMM. So in case of the serial execution for the first example, okay, you are executing task one by one in order to get the solution. So total serial work will be 2m plus 1, because solution is found at the task number 3 in that case, okay, and total parallel work will be 1 there only. And in case of the right side you can say example, solution may be obtained uh, by executing the first subtask itself, okay. So total serial work will be only m, and total parallel work will be 4m if you are performing it or executing it concurrently. So this is regarding the amount of work done during the that computation. Okay, so you have to remember here only, in case of the exploratory decomposition, uh, it it will have the exploration or a search of a state space of solutions. So large number of that is solution steps are there. Out of them only one will be the you can say the accurate solution state there, you can say that. Then moving towards the next you can say the decomposition technique, that is the fourth decomposition technique actually, speculative decomposition. You might have seen the meaning of speculation or speculative data speculation, code speculation. You might have studied in second year in Dell or the COA. Okay, so like that, speculative means you have to perform their smart work. Okay, because next step may or may not known a priori, if you see that. So we'll see that speculative decomposition here, because in some applications dependencies between tasks are not known a priori, means dependency among the tasks are not known in advance, if you see there. So for such application, it is very much impossible, if you see there, to identify independent tasks. So there are two techniques or approaches are available. Those approaches are conservative approach and the optimistic approach. So in case of the conservative approach, uh, it identify independent tasks only when they are guaranteed to not have dependencies. So if you are following the conservative approach, it will guarantee that is the two tasks will not be dependent with one another, if you see that. And whereas the second approach is the optimistic approach, and optimistic approach which schedules tasks even when they may potentially be erroneous. So if tasks are found erroneous, okay, during the computation, so in that case there is one alternative to roll back those tasks there, you see that. So in case of the conservative approaches, it may yield little concurrency, and optimistic approaches may require rollback mechanism in the case of an error or erroneous task there, if you see that. So you have to remember speculative decomposition. There are two types of approaches: conservative approach and the optimistic approach. In case of conservative approach, uh, it guarantees that it is selecting or identifying the independent task, whereas in optimistic approach it may not select such type of task, but it schedule task even they having the errors. Okay, and during computation, if it found that is the error is there in case of any one task, so there is a rollback mechanism available, if you see. So this is the, you can say, the working principle of speculative decomposition, that is the conservative approach and optimistic approach. So well-known real-life example we have to take, that is shown in number second line. But before that, we should know the examples where speculative decomposition is used. That is nothing but the well-known example is discrete event simulation or network simulation also. If you see there, in case of the network simulation, you might have seen the NH2, NH3, that is the network simulator 1, 2, and 3, which are used to study the you can say the queuing system, or how the packets are traveled from one node to another node. Okay, and how packets are queued at a particular intermediate node, are stored or buffered temporarily there. Okay, so such type of simulation and the problems which can be represented using such type of simulation can be decomposed using the speculative decomposition technique. So the central data structure in a discrete event simulation is a time order event list. So events will be followed in a particular time order there. Okay, I will pause 1 minute. Hello. Okay, sorry for. Okay, we are talking about the speculative decomposition example. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Okay, I will continue. Just let me see. How many students are there? Still only 49 students. And let me see. Recording. Okay. Again, progress. Okay. Anyway, so real life example we'll see regarding the speculative decomposition. So well-known example, that is the everybody is experiencing there every day. That is, events are extracted precisely in time order, you know. So and processed, and if required, resulting events are inserted back into the event list. And well-known example we'll see. Consider your day today as a discrete event system. If you see that, means today's event sequence will be there. You get up, then get ready for you can say the office, then or the college, then drive to work or drive to college, then attend classes and practicals, that is work, then eat lunch, then study or work sometime, that is the implementing practicals. Okay, then completing assignments, and then again drive back to home, then eat dinner and sleep, if you see that. So in this case, each of these events may be processed independently, if you see there. But however, in driving to work, okay, so it will not happen, but you might meet with an unfortunate accident and not get to work at all in that case. Okay, so your event sequence will be disturbed in this case. So therefore, an automatic scheduling of other events will have to be rolled back, if you see there. Okay, so this is the you can say the example of speculative decomposition, because you need to roll back remaining all events in that case, if you see that. Another example it is shown here, speculative decomposition, that is the we already discussed about the example of the network simulation. Okay, there are different nodes are represented like the A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I. These are shown at 4 different levels. So A and B may be the you can say the source node, and I may be the destination node in that particular networking system. Okay, so task is to simulate the behavior of this network for various inputs and node delay parameters also, you can say that. So delay parameters might be related to the queuing delay, you can say the buffering delay, transmission delay. This kind of delays are possible there for at every intermediate node or the source and target node also, you can see that. Okay, so that kind of study will be you can say or simulation you can perform using the speculative decomposition, you can see that. If any problem or any node found erroneous, in that case you need to roll back from that particular point. Okay, and this may be assigned to the another path or that particular network, if you see that. You have to roll back and again resend that particular packet in our current example. For example, uh, if you see there after node G, okay, the output is not you can say the next channel is the erroneous one. In that case, uh, you can forward that data to the node number H node, if you see that. Okay, and then it will be transmitted to the destination node I, if you see there. This is called as the rollback there. Okay. So apart from you can say the speculative decomposition, hybrid decomposition is also possible if you see there, and it will be more beneficial in certain problems like the quick sort algorithm. We have seen using the recursive decomposition earlier. So recursive decomposition alone limits concurrency. So you can follow the mixture of data decomposition and recursive decomposition to get the you can say the desired result if you see there. So in this particular problem, you can apply the hybrid approach. That is the combination of the recursive decomposition and the data decomposition. And then another example you can see in discrete event simulation. There might be concurrency in task processing, and a mixture of speculative and data decomposition may work well if you see there compared to the only speculative decomposition or only data decomposition. So you can use the hybrid decomposition approach at discrete event simulation problem if you see there. Then again another example is there that is already seen in case of the recursive decomposition approach, finding a minimum number from a given list of numbers. So here also you can use the hybrid approach, mixture of data decomposition and recursive decomposition approach. If you see there in this example at level 1, we have applied the data decomposition. That is, you have divided the data or item set in 4 number of groups there. That is the data decomposition. Then you have applied the recursive decomposition technique there at level 2 and 3 also. Okay, data decomposition is only at level 1. So in this way, it will definitely improve the overall performance and speed up of your system also, if you see there. So here we have almost covered decomposition techniques, that is the recursive decomposition, then data decomposition, then we have seen the exploratory decomposition, and you can see the speculative decomposition and hybrid decomposition also, if you see there. So here we have finished decomposition technique topic. Then we'll move towards the next topic, that is the task characteristics. Okay, so there are different topics, that is the characteristics of task and task interaction characteristics. These are two different you can say the subtopics there. Okay, so characteristics are or task characteristics are classified into three different categories if you see there. uh, Task generation, task sizes, and size of data associated with task if you see there. So you can explain the task characteristics based on these three important points. That is the task generation is the one characteristic. Okay, you need to decompose the given problem into uh, n number of subtasks. That is the task generation will be one characteristic. Task size. So you can decomposing your task uh, either using the fine grained decomposition approach or the coarse grained decomposition approach. So number of tasks and size of those tasks will vary. If it is fine grained, means task size will be small. That may be uniform or non-uniform also. And coarse grain means task size will be larger in that case. Then size of data associated with task. So it depends on the input data that is required for the current you can say the task to complete its computation. Okay, and to produce a desired final or intermediate result. So input data set may be small or large. It will vary depending on the type of task you are executing there. Then task generation approaches might be again, this is the first characteristic, static task generation and dynamic task generation. So from its name itself we will understand what is static task generation and its meaning, and what is dynamic task generation and its meaning. Because in case of static task generation, you can say you can identify the concurrent task in advance, or concurrent tasks can be identified a priori, if you see there. And in case of the dynamic task generation, tasks are generated as we perform the computation. So at runtime we will understand the we can say the task there, if you see there, or concurrent task, which tasks can be executed concurrently there. So in case of the static task generation, examples of the tasks you can say typical matrix operations, or graph algorithm, or image processing applications, and other regular structure problems that will come under this category, that is the static task generation category. Okay, and generally static tasks are generated using the recursive decomposition technique, if you see there, or sometimes you can use the data decomposition technique as well. And in case of the dynamic task generation, examples are we can well-known example is game playing. Each 15 puzzle board is generated from the previous one, and these kind of applications are generally decomposed using the exploratory or the speculative decomposition approach or the technique. So this is about the task generation as a static task generation and the dynamic task generation. Here you have to remember, uh, in case of static task generation, concurrent tasks are known in advance, okay, or a priori. And example is the typical matrix operations and graph algorithm. Then dynamic task generation, that is tasks are generated when we are performing the computation at runtime. And the classic example that is the game playing, that is the 15 puzzle problem, you can say. Okay. Then second characteristics of the task sizes. So question will be there. Uh, that is based on the, you can say the task characteristics. Questions might be there. What are the characteristics of task? And this question may be asked for the 5 marks, 5 to 6 marks also. In that case, you have to state these three characteristics and explain in your one words. Okay, you see there, in order to get the complete marks. And in last, as far as the last topic is concerned, there will be the questions also. You can see there. So what kind of questions may be asked on the last topic, that is the decomposition technique. So I will tell you those questions also. So questions might be there. Write a short note on data decomposition and recursive decomposition. This may be asked for 6 to 8 marks in end-sem examination, or write short note on exploratory decomposition and speculative decomposition may be asked again the you can set the 7 to 8 marks in end-sem examination. And in case of the end-sem examination, there may be the question on explain the data decomposition, and that is the input data decomposition and output data decomposition technique. This may be asked for 5 marks or 6 marks also in same examination. So such type of questions may be asked on decomposition techniques topics. Then our topic is in progress, characteristics of task. Okay. Second characteristic of task is the task sizes. If you know, whatever tasks are generated by following the first characteristic, if you see that is the task generation. So the generated subtasks might be having the uniform size in case of the fine-grained task, or they may have the non-uniform size also, if you see there. Then in case of the non-uniform size task, it may be such that they can be determined a priori or not. So non-uniform size tasks may not be predicted or determined a priori, or sometime you can determine sizes of those tasks also if you are using the fine-grained approach or the coarse-grained approach. Examples in this class include discrete optimization problem, in which it is difficult to estimate the effective sizes of a state space. Yeah, this is the, you can say, the problem in you can say discrete optimization problem. That is the, becomes very difficult to estimate the effective size of a state space. If you see, so this is the second characteristic of task. First one we have seen the task generation, second one is the size of task, and third one is the size of data associated with task. So we have already discussed, but again you should know this one. The size of data associated with a task, it may be small or large when viewed in the context of the size of the task. So we have already discussed, it depends on the type of task. Okay, and amount of input data required to complete uh, execution of that particular or computation of that particular task in order to get the desired final result or the intermediate partial result, if you see that. So if you a small context of tasks imply that an algorithm can easily communicate this task to other processes dynamically. For example, the 15 puzzle problem, if you see there. So in case of the small context of task, that parallel algorithm, okay, in which that task belongs, you see there, or process. So that algorithm or process can communicate this task to other processes, okay, from which that current task require the, you can say, input data dynamically. This will happen the dynamically, okay. So example is the 15 puzzle problem. This is regarding the small context of task. But in case of the large context of task, if you see there, a large context ties the task to a process or alternately an algorithm, and may attempt to reconstruct the context at another processes as opposed to communicating the context of the task. So a large context of task, it will tie the task to a respective process or alternately uh, that parallel algorithm, process or algorithm, meaning is same here, and it may attempt to reconstruct the context again also, or it may attempt to you can say reconstruct the context of that particular task with the another processes also, if you see there, and to get the data to complete the computation of that particular task, if you see there. So example of this kind of large context task is the zero one integer programming. Okay, so these are the three characteristics of the task. That is the task generation, task sizes, and the size of data associated with task. So question will be there, what are the characteristic of task? This may be asked for 5 to 6 marks also in some examination. So again you have to remember here characteristic of task as task generation. Here you have to remember static task generation and dynamic task generation. Then size of task, then data, that is the uh, data associated or size of data associated with the task. If you see that, these are the uh, three important task characteristics there. If you see that. So in next topic is there or subtopic characteristic of inter task or task interactions. These are also called as the task interaction characteristics. If you see there, so based on the different parameters, there are different classification ways as far as the uh, task interaction characteristics are concerned. So don't confuse with the uh, task characteristics with the task interaction characteristics. These are two different, you can say, the topics, if you see there. I just need to say so 53 students are there, and just to say whether recording is in progress. Can anybody tell me?
Yes, sir. It is recording.
Okay, okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yes, sir. The recording is in
Then,
progress.
okay, okay, good. So whether to start task interaction characteristics, or if you have any query you can ask, because last 10 minutes are there. Okay, so we'll see these are the characteristic of task we have seen: task generation, then size of task. So task generation, you have to consider a static task generation and dynamic task generation with their example. Then task sizes, second characteristic. Third characteristic is the size of data associated with the task. Then moving towards the uh, next subtopic, characteristics of task interactions. Okay, so if you see there, there are different approaches to classify the characteristics of task interactions. If you see there, there are different ways. It depends on the associated dichotomy of the uh, with the task. So static interactions and dynamic interactions. Okay, so static interactions are nothing but the tasks and their interactions. Those are known a priori or in advance. And static interaction characteristics are very easy to adopt in your current or code uh, into your program, or in the form of program you can write the source code. But it is difficult to code the dynamic interaction if you see there in case of the task. The timing or interacting task cannot be determined a priori. This is the dynamic interactions. And these interactions are very hard to code in your program. If you see that example is there, using message passing APIs, for example. So these are the you can say the characteristics of the task interactions as a static interactions, that is static task interaction, and the dynamic task interaction. If you see there, so you have to remember here, in case of static task interaction, that is the task and their interactions are known a priori. You can see there, and this can be easily coded in your program. You can see there. Whereas in case of dynamic task interaction, a timing or interacting tasks are cannot be determined in advance or a priori, and it is very difficult to code in your program. If you see there, so where we have to face the uh, challenges, or you can say the problem. So this is the one way of you can say the classifying the uh, task interaction characteristics as a static interaction and a dynamic interaction. Similarly, characteristics of task interactions can be classified as a regular interaction and irregular interactions also. In case of the regular interaction, there is a definite pattern of the task interactions. Interaction is nothing but the how tasks are sending and receiving data, okay, which are required to complete their computation. So example of the definite pattern is in the graph sense. This pattern can be exploited for efficient implementation also, if you see there. Then irregular interactions, where interactions lack well-defined topologies, if you see there, that is task interactions. There is no fixed or definite pattern of the interaction. So pattern may having the certain rule, that is the you can say the at a time you can say 1 KB data will be received or sent likewise, okay, and time duration also. So that will come under the definite pattern, that is the regular interaction, but this is not present in irregular interaction. So you can explain the task interaction characteristics as a static interaction or dynamic interaction, then as a regular interactions and the irregular interactions also. So few more possible ways are there as far as the task interaction characteristics are concerned. There are characteristic of task interactions, that is the regular static interaction pattern, that is the fixed pattern example is shown here. A simple example of the regular static interaction pattern is in image dithering. Okay, and the underlying communication pattern is a structured 2D mesh as shown here. So in case of the regular you can say the interaction, so communication pattern is fixed here if you see there, and it is following the particular topology which is not present in irregular pattern. So in current example it is following the 2D mesh topology, and pattern is fixed there, that is each you can say the that particular node having the 4 by 4 you can say the matrix of the pixels. Okay, so each task having the size of 4 by 4 pixel matrix if you see there, and pixel sizes are also equal there if you see there in each case, in each and every you can say task. Okay, so this is the example of the regular static interaction pattern. And whereas the irregular pattern you can see here, and this example is the multiplication of the sparse matrix with a vector. This is the well-known example of a static irregular interaction pattern. Here is an example of sparse matrix and its associated interaction pattern that is shown towards the right, that is the B. Okay, so each task may not have the that is the equal number of you can say the uh, matrix elements. Okay, or the non-zero element there. For example, task 0 having the 4 non-zero elements, then task number 1 having the 4 number of non-zero elements, and 3 having the 5 number again, and 4 having again the 3 number of non-zero elements, and so on. And task number 8 having just 4 number of non-zero elements to complete its computation. So adjacency matrix or graph is also shown in diagram B there. So it is not a fixed pattern if you see there. So I think today we'll stop here. Characteristic of task based on the criteria read only and read write we'll see in next lecture, because there are different ways of you can say the writing the characteristics of task interactions. So we'll stop here. If you have any query you can ask. I am here for next 10 minutes because I have another lecture also today on T in afternoon session.